All right. Welcome to reInvent. Are you guys all excited? All right, I like that spirit over there. I guess we have over 2,000 sessions and workshops lined up this week, so make the most out of it. Any first-timers over here for reInvent? All right, that's great. I'm going to recommend to install or activate your pedometer on your phone. Count the number of steps you're going to walk this week, and then I'm telling you, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. A warm welcome to this presentation. My name is Vin Dahake. I lead Solutions Architect team for ISV Private Equity. I've been with AWS for 5 years now, and I'm based out of New York City. I'm going to let my partner introduce himself.
Yeah, and thank you, Vin. Really a pleasure to be here. My name is Sean South. I'm Global Director of AI and Machine Learning at Qlik, and I have the opportunity to work with our customers worldwide in a variety of different industries on their cutting-edge AI and machine learning solutions.
All right, thanks, Sean. All right, before we get started, a quick show of hands. How many of you have built machine learning applications, analytics applications that have worked for the first time in production? Oh, that's good, that's good. We have a few hands up over here. It's not easy. I mean, I was hoping everybody would raise their hand and I would just walk up from the stage away and say, thank you very much, but this is the reason we are here. Building machine learning platforms which are enterprise-ready, scalable is not easy. And that's why we have Qlik at our doorsteps today. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about Qlik. Qlik has been a global leader for the last 30 years in data analytics space. They have helped companies, transform by processing data, getting insights from the data. Qlik has three core expertise that we are seeing. They've done a lot of work in real-time data integration. They've done work in analytics, business intelligence, visualization, and third, AI ML and auto ML, and that's the reason we're here to discuss about Qlik Predict. Today, Qlik has over 40,000 customers across 100 different countries. And in 2004, AWS and Qlik, we signed a strategic collaboration agreement. And I'm excited to tell you, the result of this agreement is Qlik Predict. This is a fully managed multi-tenant global machine learning SaaS platform, which is entirely built on AWS. All right, let's take a quick look at the agenda over here. We will talk about what this machine learning predictive analytics platform is. We will do a deep dive into the architecture. We will look at some of the case studies, and then we'll talk about the challenges that we faced and how we can learn from that. 70% of forecasting programs fail. Really, 70%. This is not an academic study. This is real money, real business, real challenges that people face. Most of the traditional forecasting programs fail because they look at data in isolation. That's not how real world is. We have seen, when programs are doing, let's say, for example, sales forecasting, they look at, okay, what was my sales data for last month? It was X, so maybe next month is X plus delta. But that's not how it works in reality. There are multiple variables that need to be taken into consideration when you're doing forecasting. It could be seasonality, it is your inventory, economic conditions, it could be your competitor's action. There are multiple factors. As a matter of fact, there could be up to 50 different factors that can impact your forecasting. Simple models probably can look at seasonality and make predictions. But for this particular case, when we have 50 plus different variables which interact with each other, we need complex, advanced algorithms like encoder, decoder, perceptron, or recurrent neural networks to do the forecasting. These models are very computationally intensive, and they need GPUs to perform the calculations. As I mentioned, we worked with Qlik, and we formed this strategic collaboration agreement, and I'm happy the result of that was building Qlik Predict. Sean, you want to share a little bit more story?
Yeah, and thank you, because as Vin mentioned, this opportunity is massive, and with machine learning, real companies are getting massive results around the supply chains, their logistics, around their HR and more. And so to start to share a quick story around a company called Software Logistik Artland, or SLA, in Germany. They have a very complex network of suppliers, distributors, manufacturing that they have to run on a daily basis, where even small changes in their operations can lead to massive impacts around finances and staffing. And so with Qlik Predict, they are able to build a forecasting capability and able to predict over with 90% accuracy the demand that they needed to produce every single month. And that led to a 50% reduction in annual planning needs. And the result is that while this is really complex, they have a business that is dynamic, and they need a capability that can match that reality. And so today, we're talking about taking the next leap, having a multi-variate forecasting capability that can have smarter forecasting at a global scale. And so to start this stage, I want to talk a little bit about what machine learning is and what AutoML is, automated machine learning, and why the demands of time series are fundamentally different. So machine learning is being able to predict future results based on past occurrences and understand why things are happening so that you can take a corrective action. And what automated machine learning is taking a lot of the time-consuming tasks, whether data preparation, feature engineering, ML selection, model ops, and more, so that you can deploy these at scale where they're needed for the business. Time series modeling is a subset of machine learning where you're looking at forecasting on a continuous time window. Let me give you an example of why this is needed. If we think about retail is a really good example, and we work with retail companies worldwide. In retail, you have products, you have SKUs, you have customers, you have locations, you have online, you have retail, you have a multitude of different factors that are impacting your business every day and in real time. This leads to a web of exponential dependencies where one factor is actually in fact impacting another. This leads to billions of interactions. And traditionally, a lot of the forecasting has been univariate. And what this means is looking at one historical variable to forecast a future result. But as mentioned, in reality, businesses are complex, they're dynamic. There are thousands of different interactions, from channels to products. Even weather has a large impact on business operations. And each added input leads to a multiplying effect of complexity. And this is why we need multivariate time series, the ability to capture all these different signals to create an accurate, actionable forecast where you can run your business. But this also leads to a massive compute challenge, billions of potential interactions. And so today, this is why we're happy to announce and talk about our multivariate time series capability with AWS partnership that's based on GPUs and elastic just-in-time compute at scale.
All right, so why AWS? When Qlik was looking to build this platform, they just didn't want any cloud platform. They were looking for somebody, someone who can help them scale and build enterprise models serving 40,000 customers that they have today. There were three key things that Qlik was looking at. Number one, global scale with data sovereignty. Today, AWS has, I believe, 38 regions and 3 more coming up. And I probably will stand corrected tomorrow when Matt Garman speaks, and maybe he'll announce a few more. But AWS has the global scale, which can serve Qlik's customers in 100 different countries. Also, data sovereignty. As you're aware, with GDPR and other compliance, data needs to reside in that country. So AWS provides, the global scale as well as data sovereignty for building the application. Second, we talked about GPU scaling. GPUs are expensive, so you need to be able to scale as well as control the cost. So you need to be able to scale down to 0 as required. Third, we're looking at enterprise-grade reliability. When customers are running these applications, they're mission-critical applications, they need a platform that needs to be up and running 99.9% of the time. Not only that, they also want to have the right high availability, disaster recovery in place for running these mission-critical applications. Now let's take a quick look at the architecture for Qlik Predict. Qlik Predict is a completely native, cloud-native application built on AWS. The three core components that we've looked at is, we have GPU clusters, we have regional training models that we are using, as well as we have, scale to 0 architecture to keep the costs low. Also, we have used several native services like Amazon MQ, we have Amazon S3, RDS. Also, for real-time integration, we've leveraged webhooks and AWS Lambda. Sean, you want to take us into this architecture, do a deep dive?
Well, what is so amazing is that with AWS, we're able to take this to scale and make it a reality. These complex algorithms that are necessary for these billions of interactions in real time for our customers. We're talking about deep neural architectures, GPU acceleration, elastic compute at the reliability, the scalability, and with the security requirements that our customer needs. And this is what AWS can deliver, which is forecasting for the real world. The compute demands are enormous. Learning relationships across thousands of variables, thousands of signals that impact businesses every day, from supply chain to demand, seasonality, the temporal patterns, the cross-correlation, really looking at things in a systematic way, a holistic way that is more representative of a business. And to work with these deep recurrent networks, where the combination explode, we need the GPU power. And that was so exciting about working with Amazon to have these GPUs that can really do this in the speed that's necessary for the businesses to take action. It all starts with the API gateway, where when a request is routed, it can be routed to the correct region across the world where it's needed within its boundary so that it can meet the data sovereignty and regulations for each particular region. The heavy lifting with EKS and Carpenter allows for that just-in-time scaling of these workloads, being able to scale up to these massive demands when needed. And the GPU EC2 instances can be tuned for different neural workloads depending on the use case. And so together, it's a globally distributed GPU accelerated SaaS capability, one SaaS capability for each region worldwide.
All right, that's great, Sean. So let's talk about the real impact of building on AWS. Speed to market. When Qlik was building this platform, they didn't have to worry about building their infrastructure, leveraging AWS's managed services. They were training their models where competitors were still trying to figure out how to set up their environment. That's the key over there. Scale. Today, Qlik runs 100,000 plus training jobs on a monthly basis. That's literally 3,300 jobs a day. So they have the scale today to process and train the models. Third, let's look at cost efficiency. Using Carpenter, as Sean mentioned, along with Spot instances, you can control your cost. You can bring down your cost 60 to 70%, leveraging a scale to 0 architecture along with Spot instances so that it doesn't become very expensive. Also look at regionality. With the 38 regions that we have today, Qlik could easily expand to any new region to serve their customers and did not have to spend a lot of time building their infrastructure over there. And finally is reliability. Leveraging, as I mentioned, HADR, intelligent workload balancing. You can take care of availability of your application, see to it it's up and running.
And so the results are amazing. Just looking at our telemetry, currently we have over 4,500 active users on Qlik Predict, generating over 167,000 trained models and 1.5 billion predictions to date. All of this with over 99.99% uptime. And with our GPUs versus a CPU equivalent, we're able to run our training jobs up to 9 times faster. But I would really like to talk about outcomes because it's the actual tangible business outcomes that matter. We, of course, work with industries all across the world, from financial services, healthcare, retail, and more. I'd like to just share a couple examples today. One with Appalachian Regional Healthcare, a hospital network based on the East Coast. They were able to reduce their patient no-shows, their patient cancellation rates, saving over $6 million a year. With Qlik Predict, what they're able to do is not only be able to predict and understand why a patient is going to cancel, but take the corrective action so that they can not only get the patient to show up when they need to, but also have better patient outcomes. In financial services, Integra Financial is a really good example of integrating this into an external workflow with a real-time API for automated lead scoring, which has led to today over $1 million in automated savings. And Village Roadshow, which is an entertainment and hospitality group in the Asia Pacific region. They have a very complex business operations with staffing, customers, and more. And they were able to use Qlik Predict to forecast demand and staffing for faster data-driven decisions.
Thanks, Sean. All right. So what is the key takeaway over here? Building enterprise-level machine learning SaaS platform isn't something that is in the future. This is happening today. Qlik has built Predict platform, which is serving multiple enterprise-level customers. They are doing millions of predictions and saving customers millions of dollars for the sales forecasting at this point. The 3 core things that I want everybody to learn from this, number 1 is scale by design. Multi-tenancy isn't something that you can retrofit. It is expensive as well as risky. So think about multi-tenancy when you're building the application from day 1. Second, is telemetry, and observability. See to it that you integrate observability in your application from day 1. When you're running 100,000 jobs, your customers want to have the transparency and see what is under the hood. So leverage CloudWatch, for example, to see to it that the customers have the full visibility into the application that is running. And then finally, machine learning applications, they cannot run in silos. Integration is everything. See to it that you can integrate your applications along with your workflows so that you can derive the maximum benefits. You can use APIs, you can use webhooks, you can use Lambda event-driven architecture. AWS has a lot of services that can help you do that. So leverage, for example, EventBridge. This will help you integrate your application and not run in silos to get the maximum business value out of it. All right, so this is an excellent example where you've seen how Qlik and AWS work together. We had a strategic collaboration agreement. We leveraged Qlik's domain expertise with AWS's global infrastructure to make Qlik Predict happen, which is saving customers millions of dollars doing sales, financial, even operations predictions at this point. Qlik Predict is also available on AWS Marketplace. I encourage all of you guys to take a look at it, and you can see it actually up and running, where you can build a machine learning job with absolutely very little code. You can take the maximum use of the machine learning models over there. Right, Sean, you want to?
Yeah, and so really thanks for having this conversation today. Please come visit us at our booth, 1727. Happy to talk about our journey in building this architecture. We have some engineers here as well to talk about their experiences and also your challenges and aspirations around machine learning in multivariate time series. And so really happy to be here today.
Thanks, Sean. My name is Vin, and I'll be around if you guys have any questions. More than happy to answer them. Thank you. Enjoy the reInvent.